welcome. We certainly want to welcome the families of the Hawaiian Islands and our prime viewers around the world to the Thriving Women Network special, Empowering Maui. Our mission is to enlighten you on the events that led up to the series of wildfires that broke out in the state of Hawaii, predominantly on the island of Maui. We want to encourage you to support organizations like the Hungry Homeless Heroes Hawaii that prepares hundreds of meals a day, hundreds of amazing individuals who garden, cook, and deliver meals directly into the hands of unsheltered heroes. And the Maui Strong Fund, which provides communities with resources for disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. The fund is being deployed to support Maui residents affected by the wildfires of Maui. Last but not least, today we will share empowering stories of people that are Maui strong, that are sharing their time, finances, and resources to improve the quality of the lives of those they care about. My name is Sabrina Protic, and I am streaming live from Brandon, Florida, as our state here is going through, as we speak, Hurricane Idalia. I'm honored to host this special with my friend and Maui resident, Miss CJ Grace. And CJ, I want to thank you for bringing these empowering stories to our viewers. But before we do this, let's take a deep dive into our topic, Empowering Maui. How was your week?
Well, Sabrina, I really should ask you how your week has been, because you've been facing evacuations and a Category 3 hurricane. So how have you been doing with that, and how is your family bearing up?
Well, CJ, this came up so quickly. As we began to unfold about the fires, I was out of town. I arrived Sunday night, and Monday morning we were getting alerts on our phone that a hurricane was coming. So it was a quick shift. Everybody's running out to get food, water supplies, to hunker down. My sister had to evacuate. She's about 45 minutes away. She's still evacuated because of the storm surge. And state of Florida is on top of everything. We've got great evacuation zones. We'll be talking about some of that with the Maui fires, as I read a lot of the research and how important notification is. Because we were notified, we were all able to become prepared and knew when we needed to leave. We've had minute by minute updates. Where I am right now, it's rain, it's wind, but we're not in danger. But only 30 minutes away, we've got people that are underwater. So yes, a lot of areas, low-lying areas are underwater, but we are safe. Nothing compared to Maui. And I just can't wait to hear more about how you've been dealing with that. So how has your week been?
Well, we've been dealing with the aftermath of the fires, and there's a lot that went on there. During the first days of August, we had a multitude of minor brush fires that affected the Hawaiian Islands. There were fires on the island of Oahu, which stretched the fire department resources there, but were apparently quickly contained by August the 4th. But then on August the 7th, we had more problems, and the National Weather Service's offices in Honolulu issued a red flag warning for portions of all the islands until the morning of August the 9th, highlighting that very dry fuels combined with strong and gusty easterly winds and low humidities could produce critical fire weather conditions with gusts of up to 60 miles an hour. And you can see that map on the screen there. That was showing the number of fires ignited on Maui. There were three main areas actually that were affected. One was the town of Lahaina, one was Kula, and then there was another fire that was threatening Kihei, which is the area where I live. And some people close to me were ordered to evacuate. I was fortunate enough not to have an evacuation notice. But fires affected quite a lot of the island. And what we had was a 30-acre brush fire reported adjacent to Kahului Airport in a field. We had intense winds knocking down utility poles. We had a lot of different things going on. And because of the down poles and the wind, there were many power outages. And you can see that picture there shows the devastation in the town of Lahaina, which was pretty much completely destroyed. But then you'd have weird anomalies like we just saw that previous picture where one house with a red roof survived. And here you see all the cars that were, it was almost like they melted in the fire there. Absolutely devastating conditions, something that we had never seen before. It was almost like a war zone on our own doorstep. So yeah, it was incredibly fast that the fire came, and it was very damaging. It was and a lot of people had absolutely no notice of what was going on. So Sabrina, what were your thoughts about this event when you heard about it?
Oh my goodness, complete devastation, because when I think about Hawaii, I don't think about disaster. I don't think about devastation. It takes me to a place in my mind where it's peace and rest and beauty and water and greenery and nature. So to hear that there's devastation and fires and a place that I go to relax my mind, it's mind blowing to me that something could be happening in such a beautiful, and I call a protected area. And I'm still trying to process this in my mind, that something like this could happen in a beautiful, what I call nature home away from home, because I've been to Hawaii and I'm still trying to process it. It doesn't feel real to me, even though I see the video footage.
Well, what actually happened in Lahaina was that there was a 3-acre brush fire reported at 6:37 a.m., apparently sparked by a down power line, and evacuations were ordered in the areas around that school. It was Lahaina Luna High School that was in the first area near there was the first fire, and the firemen reckoned that they'd put it out and then had to go off and fight fires in Kula and near Kihei. So they were spread pretty thin, dealing with 3 different areas at once. And so because of the fires in Lahaina near the high school, the schools were closed and the children were either sent home or told not to even come in. So a lot of kids were at home, and that was an issue, because that meant that there were kids who were potentially on their own at home when the fires broke out in Lahaina town. And because we had no electricity and no cell signal, and the sirens didn't go off, in some ways, the people in Lahaina town were sitting ducks. They didn't, they didn't have any warning. And there was bumper to bumper traffic trying to get out of the town during that time. And survivors said that they either got stuck in their cars or realized they needed to go in the water, in the ocean, to escape the fires. Because some people I know, a friend of mine was helping a newly homeless woman who had been in the water for 8 hours before she was rescued. Just imagine that, 8 hours in the water. And the only reason that she didn't get hypothermia, as you would even in the water in Hawaii, was that the fires were so hot that they actually heated up the water. But it was the biggest disaster that Hawaii has ever seen. It was, after following Pearl Harbor, it was pretty much the biggest disaster we've ever had in Hawaii. And even though Hawaii, here in Maui, we have a very large integrated outdoor siren warning system with over 80 sirens on Maui alone that are meant to be used in cases of natural disaster. For whatever reason, local officials decided not to sound the sirens. So that is, there's a lot of controversy over that. A lot of residents feel that that might have made a very big difference if the sirens had been sounded. So
CJ, can I break in a minute? You just said something that it's making me think. So Hawaii is an island and it's surrounded by bodies of water. And you said that the fire was so hot and so intense that rather than the natural water's cooling the fire heated up the water.
That's right. Well, if you were close to shore, I mean, further away, that wasn't the case, but close to shore. But that's how some of these people managed to survive without getting hypothermia after having been in the water for several hours before being rescued.
Wow. Thank you.
And, the death toll is officially it's around 115, but a lot of the bodies cannot be identified. And there are a lot of people missing. The count of missing people has fluctuated from 2,000 to 350 but it's very, very hard to know because there are also a lot of homeless people in Lahaina, and those people will have no friends and family who would have reported them missing. So it's a very, very difficult situation. And in terms of the number of dead, it's going to be probably impossible to identify most of the bodies there because they were some of them were it's just ash basically. It's very, very difficult, and they've got forensic teams going in there right now, but they've actually said that they want DNA samples from friends and from relatives in order to be able to identify some of the bodies. But there have been such amazing stories of resilience of how the island has all the people in the island, how they've come together to help the fire victims, and so it's really amazing. There was one story that I heard. I need to give a shout out to a nun at the Jodo Mission, which is a Buddhist temple in Lahaina, and she's a Korean nun, and she was compelled to stay in the temple even though it was burning. She wanted to rescue the Buddha. And despite the fact that the temple area was filled with smoke and she could hardly see, she managed to rescue this wooden Buddha and take it to safety. And it was a very selfless act. She wasn't concerned about her personal safety. And in fact, it's the second time that the temple has burned down. It burned down in 1968 and was rebuilt in 1970. And at that time, a different person rescued the Buddha from the temple, and so the Buddha survived. And so yet again, this wooden Buddha has survived, and they're going to rebuild that temple with the Buddha in it. But the Korean nun didn't want her name given out. She was very modest, but she braved the fire just to rescue the Buddha statue. So, and you find all kinds of stories like that of people who didn't, against their own personal safety, they did things that they felt were for the higher good, and to me that was a very empowering story. But there's a news clip that I'd like to show of a wonderful ceremony that was done in Waikiki, a paddle out to honor all the people that died in the fires on Maui. So I'd like to go to that.
Now to tensions rising in Hawaii after another fire broke out in Maui, prompting evacuations. Sam Brock is there for us. And Sam, this time warning sirens did sound, right?
Yeah, that's right, Kate. The sirens were activated around 1:30 p.m. yesterday afternoon, perhaps a reflection of the lessons learned. I'm standing right now on a hillside where the brush fire swept through. Look at this. Look at the footprint and how close it came to homes, Kate. The reason that this earth I'm standing on is black right now is because the grass burned. It came right up to the bushes. There's a charred tree. It was virtually on the doorstep of all of these homes. Now, this video shows plumes of smoke and flames as residents are fleeing under a go-now evacuation order. That is about 1.5 miles outside of Lahaina town. This woman was being interviewed as sirens started blaring.
You've lost your jobs because your business is gone. So, hi. I've got to go. I have staff members that are in Kahanapali and they need to be evacuated. So I must go and evacuate more staff right now.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Get the word out.
The evacuation order was ultimately lifted after about 3.5 hours, but West Maui right now is bone dry and windy, meaning this could go on for days or even weeks. Kate?
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.
Well, actually, that was a second fire that happened in near Ka'anapali, I believe, and I was told that the fire that they actually did sound the sirens that time. They were sounded 5 times, and they had the effect that they were supposed to. People actually evacuated and listened to the listened to the sirens. So there you go. So who did we invite to the show today to share their empowering stories, Sabrina?
CJ, we're very honored. Our first guest is Paul De La Reyes, an author and consultant with 36 years experience as a director of the political action organization, the Maui Pono Network. In 2018, he helped usher in a progressive majority in Maui County. Paul coordinated 287 grassroots groups that were focused on change. He has a book and it's called Common Sense: How We're Reclaiming Democracy and Resetting for the Common Good. Can't wait to hear from Paul. Our second guest is Ed Ellsworth. Ed is a video producer who has lived in Pau Maui since 1991 after working in Switzerland on a solar project with the Stirling engine. He has worked with the U.S. Navy on documenting the cleanup of Kohu Awalo. And, I'm not Hawaiian, so I hope I'm not tearing these names up.
Ed comes from Paia, and he documented the cleanup of Ka'aolawe, which is a Hawaiian island near Maui, which and produced a video called Protective Works.
Well, thank you for bailing me out of that, CJ. Ed was also involved in placing private radiation detection networks in the Chernobyl in Japan after come on, help me out with this, CJ.
Fukushima disaster. So,
Fukushima disaster. Coming from our former British BBC correspondent, she gets these names. I appreciate my co-host here. Ed is also working to improve access to clean water in Maui in the aftermath of the wildfires. And our final guest is Steve Phillips, a Hawaiian representative for PROUT, the Progressive Utilization Theory Organization. Steve worked with cooperatives for 22 years on the mainland, and 12 years ago, he started Local Harvest on Maui with the purpose of building up the local food supply. For the past few years, his organization has been working closely with Hungry Heroes Hawaii, providing local produce for hundreds of meals for the homeless. The Local Harvest Food Hub now supplies local produce to the stores and restaurants on Maui, and most of the nonprofits for preparing meals for the people displaced for the Lahaina fires. We will get a chance to meet our guest after our YouTube break. But before we go to break, We want to thank our host and resident of Hawaii, Miss CJ Grace, for making this possible and for bringing enlightenment and encouragement and empowerment to this very tragic event that is occurring in the state of Maui and the other islands of Hawaii. We certainly want to thank you, Miss CJ.
Yes, and what we're going to be seeing is that empowering event I was speaking about earlier that happened happened on August 19th, day one of Duke's Ocean Fest in Honolulu, Hawaii, with what was supposed to be the Red Bull Party Wave event in Waikiki. But instead, hundreds gathered and paddled out to show support for their neighbor island, Maui, following the devastating fire in Lahaina. So, we'll be seeing that in just a moment, but don't forget that Empowering Maui is supported by Thriving Women Network, a franchise media network that supports organizations like Hungry Heroes Hawaii. Take a moment and visit their website at hhhmaui.org and support the movement of change.
Today marked day one of Duke's Ocean Fest and what was supposed to be the Red Bull Party Wave event in Waikiki. Now instead, hundreds gathered and paddled out to show support for Maui. Nikki Schenfeld has the story.
A last-minute event drew in roughly 500 people to Queens in Waikiki to show their support for Maui.
For this to happen in a couple days, literally, I don't think that happens anywhere else, to be honest. Because even though we weren't literally directly affected by it, we were all directly affected by it. My wife's family, all lived in a lot of them lived in Lahaina, lost everything.
Lahaina it's like a movie. It's apocalyptic. It's ground zero action, and the smell is gnarly. The energy of the people has been amazingly strong, though, and resilient. And, I gave them a lot of credit for all banding together the way they have.
DeSoto has been bringing in supplies and helping West Maui residents and knows monetary donations are what's needed most. The message to Maui, we love you and stay strong.
Just that we love you guys. We send all our love, aloha, and mana that we can to you. And in the time of need, we'll be here. Things are a little crazy right now, but when you need us to come back, clean up, rebuild, we'll be there. Aloha.
From Waikiki, Nikki Schenfeld, KJON2 News, working for Hawaii.
Welcome back to our special on Empowering Maui, sponsored by the Thriving Women Network. And we're excited to have in the studio Paul Delorier, author of the book Common Sense, How We Are Reclaiming Democracy and Resetting for the Common Good. He's also the director of the Maui Pono Network. So Paul, thank you for joining us today. And before we begin our conversation on this tragic event, yes. Why don't you tell our viewers about your passion and without getting super political, because we aren't a political show, what inspired you to write the book Common Sense?
Well, I think many of us are becoming more consciously aware that some of the things that are happening in our governance and the way resources are being utilized don't make common sense. And so like the original book that was written back in 1700s that really supported then a shift in our governance from being overseen by the British government, I think that this type of common sense that we have to look at in terms of the way our governance is actually being structured and how we can change it as citizens. We are doing that. We were doing that here in Maui. Certainly there's been in a 4-year period, we actually passed 19 charter amendments. The charter is really a local government's constitution. So it really has been rewiring our whole county in a significant way. But now we have to deal with this unfortunate tragedy. And it really has taken all of us here in our community in a way that it has hit us that we just never anticipated that such tragedy could happen to one area. But here we are, and
yeah, well, there are a lot of perspectives on the fire, Paul. And so how did the fire impact you personally, and what did you learn about its origin?
Well, certainly I have friends that have been impacted, and I was one of the people who had to evacuate also for the fire from my home. But again, I think that what's happened in this is I've seen so much aloha, so much of the community coming together in such a powerful and wonderful way that it just touches my heart. And it also inspires me to really serve and be involved in our community even more. There were a lot of things that happened on that day that are not normal in terms of fires. I think that some of the things you've mentioned already. We had a brush fire in Lahaina that happened at 6:40. By 10 o'clock in the morning, it was contained. There were a lot of other fires going on, as you mentioned, as you showed in that graphic. In Kula, the 40 miles away, that fire really started getting much worse at 3:20 p.m. And a lot of the resources, a lot of the fire trucks were brought to Kula to deal with that fire. And then what happened then by 3:40 in Lahaina, the fire started to flare up again. We don't know exactly if it was another fire that was started or if it was still embers from the other fire that helped start that fire. But anyway, it got out of control by 3:40. The flames had reached Lahaina, has gone down into the historic town by 4:30. And then by 6:30, people were fleeing and going into the waters to save their lives. Unfortunately, as CJ, as you mentioned, this extensive siren system that we have was not utilized. It was not put on. So there's something that is very concerning. Also, right before the fire hit, the cell phone service was cut. We don't know why. We don't know why that happened, but it certainly then, I think, affected the death toll significantly. Not only that, but the exits were actually being blocked by police. And again, we're investigating. We're trying to find out. We know of at least 3 roads that were blocked and where people could have gone to safety but weren't able to. And as a result, we had a lot of cars that were backed up on Front Street, and you see that you saw that picture of all those cars that would pretty much melted in different ways that were part of that traffic jam that was there.
And Front Street is the main street in Lahaina town, just to let people know. Front Street is the main street there, and that was where people were trying to exit from. So going back to the origin
and then when we
of the
start
fire,
to look at the
Paul, do you have any views on the origin of the fire?
Well, there's a lot of theories. Right off the bat, I heard global warming was the main cause for the fire. But then again, when we looked at the temperature and the climate aspects over the since really 1936, we saw that there were many, again, this whole thing about having it be something about a global incident of warming got a little bit debunked here, because we look at the average temperatures and they were around 81, 82. That has remained pretty consistent since 1946, since we had good records. So again, it leaves questions, well, what is the cause? If it's not global warming, as the initial said, then they said it was Hurricane Dora. But then
Paul, you're dropping out. You were talking about Hurricane Dora.
500 miles. We could not really justify that the winds came from Dora, because usually a small hurricane only has winds extending about 50 miles from the epicenter. So again, there were anomalies that were very strange that were creating high winds. We still have a team looking at that, investigating that. Again, when we look at the cause, again, it's very questionable as we look at things, and especially when we start to look at the anomalies. The anomalies of the fire were very unique, in terms of normal fires that are spread through a city or a town. Again, if you look at the information that we have a lot of
Paul, I'm
metal
afraid
that
your signal is dropping out a little bit. I just want to ask you,
okay.
do you have, how have families been getting the help they need to rebuild their lives, do you think?
Well, yes, there has been a significant support by the community, and that has helped a lot, certainly in the response efforts. And many of the people, though, that have survived now are asking, how could this have happened? How could this tragedy could have expanded to this degree? And again, when we look at the resources, the firemen were being dispersed in different areas, so they weren't available when the fire really broke out in Lahaina. The water pressure was way down, so they didn't have water to really fight the fire in addition. And then again, with those high winds that we had, it really just was a fireball that went through the entire town. Again, when we start to look at some of the anomalies, though, it makes it we have a lot of questions. Why this metal and glass actually melted, but yet right beside it, plastic remained unmelted or untouched.
That's
there
very
are
strange.
many trees that is strange. And there were many trees also. You look at houses that are totally burnt, white ash, but next to it are standing trees. And the trees have their bark intact. Even trees have their leaves on it. Yet those trees burnt from within, from the inner core, not from the external heat. So again, it leaves anomalies that we're questioning when we see things like plastic, when we see things like boats burning way offshore. Yes, the sparks were very significant that were flying, but again, it leaves questions as to what exactly may have been the cause of this fire. There are speculation at this point in time. There's certainly been a lot going around on the internet as to what the cause is, but again, we are just gathering data at this point in time. We have a group of citizens who have been gathering data since the fire, and we're accumulating that data right now, and we're putting it on our website, reclaimdemocracyproject.org. So if your viewers would like to learn more about some of the anomalies and some of the aspects of the fire, again, you can go to that website, reclaimdemocracyproject.org, and you can, I think, get a lot more information. It is being updated on a daily basis because we have hundreds of videos that we're going through. The citizens have been gathering a lot of data who live there, and so we're getting that information also together so we can do a citizens inquiry about what's happened. Because again, when we look at the government, they're saying that, well, it's global warming, and they're saying, no, well, maybe it's Dora, but again, those things have been disproved as in terms of having a significant impact on the actual fires that occurred. So,
well, Paul, you've given us a lot of information there, and just let me know that what is the website again? Just give us the website one more time.
Sure, it's reclaimdemocracyproject.org, and there you'll see some of the information that we're gathering from this community investigation that we're doing here in Maui.
Thank you very much, Paul. So you've been hearing from Paul DesLauriers. He's the author of the book Common Sense: How We Are Reclaiming Democracy and Resetting for the Common Good. And also he's the director of the Maui Pono Network. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for all that information you gave us. And during our YouTube break, we're going to be encouraged by a 12-year-old West Maui resident, Tan Julia. He and his friends were out trying to get food in Lahaina town on the day of the fire. They were out there trying to find food to buy because they'd had a power cut that day. But fortunately, the traffic prevented them from getting there because that was the day that the fire hit Lahaina town. Tan's mom, Jaylan Julia, is the co-founder of Art for All People. She was working at the Napili Farmers Market, about 8 miles north of Lahaina, the morning after the fire. And both Tan and Jaylan are in the video we're going to see. They're going to be describing what happened. Jaylan Julia was talking about third world conditions that resulted from the fire. So, but they still talk very strongly about how the community pulled together and helped everybody get through it. So Empowering Maui is sponsored by Thriving Women Network, a franchise media network that supports organizations like Maui Strong and also homeless here, let me get the name of it right. It's the Hungry Heroes Hawaii. We're supporting organizations like that. And if you want to support the Maui Strong Fund, visit their website at the hawaiicommunityfoundation.org and support them. Those networks, those organizations are giving money directly to the people that need them. So, and it's very important that that they're supported. There's so many people who've been displaced by the fire. I've been hearing that we have 12,000 homeless people as a result, newly homeless people as a result of the Maui fires. So coming up next, Ed Ellsworth, video producer, talking about water quality on Maui following the fire.
So whatever we have in the fridge, in the back from Saturday's market, leftovers, we just, set up and we just gave everyone. And then that's how I knew from a first-hand experience, people were crying and I was like hugging them and they were telling me that they saw, like they were leaving and their house was on fire. So that was that close. Like so many people didn't have any notification, like nothing, like there's a fire happening. Like we didn't receive anything. We didn't hear a fire truck. Like it was like just like no electricity. That was it. I mean, I just find this like beyond imagination.
There was like huge like back-to-back traffic. It would probably take an hour just to get out of Front Street from the opening next to the Safeway. That's where I was, and I was stuck. So I realized that it wasn't safe for me, and I asked my friends, let's just turn around. Food isn't as important as our lives. And we turned around, and then we spent the rest of the day, no power, no nothing, worried. And after that, I kind of just slept, and I went to sleep pretty late. I just slept. I woke up around 6 a.m. hearing faint sounds of fire trucks, not knowing what was happening. And I walked out of my home into the neighborhood asking people what's happening, and there was lines across the street of people crying and sobbing, and I had no clue what was happening. I'm just thinking it's another normal day. It wasn't another normal day, and there was just people lined up crying, sobbing, going a little crazy. And then there was centers for help. There was huge groups of people gathered. Everybody was trying to be a community, but it was really distressful for me and everybody to see that your island, your home is burning down and you have no warning. You're just sleeping. I mean, if the fire was behind my house, I would have died. I mean, I was just sleeping, no warning. So I would have been gone, and that's probably what happened to so many people. So it really is a pure tragedy, and it's something I would never wish upon anyone. I mean, it's a complete disaster, very little planning from the government. We really didn't get like a warning, even though we usually get sirens tested at the beginning of the month. We didn't really get anything like that. So we're kind of just stuck with figuring out ourselves and figuring out what we wanted to do.
So we literally didn't have anything for like days. And there was no government, nobody, no police, nobody coming and giving us any information. The only people are helping one another was the neighbors who have generators and offering food, and people, everything was melting anyways from the refrigerator. So everybody like shared their food and barbecued. That's it. And markets were closed right away because they can't function without electricity. So the power, once power is gone, which we realized within 24 hours, our lives that we think is like all set with like with our phones and with everything, internet and Wi-Fi, is gone. Like within minutes to it, it's gone. You can charge your phone, it's gone. When you don't have Wi-Fi internet service, you don't have communication with the world. And we experienced that.
It breaks my heart that there are people on the streets, but the only saving grace is the community. I'm seeing so many great people from all of these people I've met and interacted with. Many of the people that are feeding the community right now. They are feeding the homeless. They are packaging the food. They are doing the necessities, trying to figure out housing. They're doing that on their own. They're not a government. They're not nothing. On their own, they're trying to help out the community, being selfless, putting their needs backwards and putting the community's needs forwards. And that's what we need in any government. And they're really showing that the people of Maui are really taking a step up and showing that as a community, they're actually making progress. They're feeding, people are being fed. And that is just such an amazing thing.
So powerful. You know, to hear a young person have those concerns like that, concern for their life, and to realize they almost lost their life. So this is why we're honoring Maui and these fires. So welcome back to our special on empowering Maui, sponsored by the Thriving Women Network. We're excited to have in our studio Ed Ellsworth. He is a video producer and he's lived in Pae, Maui since 1991. This is not new to Ed. He's worked with the U.S. Navy on documenting a cleanup work in a neighboring island near Maui. He's produced a video called The Protective Works. He was involved in placing private radiation detection networks in Chernobyl and in Japan after the Fukushima disaster. Currently, Ed is working to improve access to clean water in Maui in the aftermath of these wildfires. So, Ed, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well, aloha, Sabrina. Thank you very much.
Well, I have a few questions to ask you before you get started.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so Ed, before we begin our conversation on this very tragic event, tell our viewers about your passion and videoing content on the important events that should empower others to action.
Well, I think it's important to be, especially in these times, be in service to others. And video is such a powerful tool to be able to let people know about what's going on in the world. So it's an easy way. It's one of the easier ways to amplify and share your message out there with the world, and hopefully educate people on what the issues are that you're concerned about.
And of course, Ed, if we didn't have those videos, we wouldn't be empowered or informed, such as the videos that we just saw. So we appreciate your really great work. Now we're going to delve a little bit more into the water and the quality of water. And you're going to tell us about something too as well. So Ed, there are a lot of perspectives on the origin of the fire. We know that. But when did you hear about the events that were taking place? And how did it impact the water quality of Kula and Lahaina?
Well, of course, right after the really intense raging fires, of course, we were concerned about people's loss of life, loss of their homes, loss of access to the roads because power poles and trees were down in the road and blocking the way. But then the Hawaii State Department of Health declared an unsafe water advisory for the upper Kula areas and for Lahaina. And if you can imagine these really, really intense raging fires melting down plastics and petrochemicals and all those things going into the water table. So the Department of Health has been concerned about the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds that have been going into the water system. These include benzene, purine, and xylenes. So the unsafe water advisory is not just the drinking water. They're being advised not to use hot water, not to even bathe in the water. So that's really impacted people for the last few weeks, where they can't even if they have their home and that's intact, they can't drink the water in the tap. They can't take a shower. That means they have to make other arrangements to live their life.
I have to go back to something you just said, because we get water alerts here in Florida, but they say, well, you can boil the water. Are you saying that not even hot water is usable?
Well, no. If you can imagine these compounds that are petrochemicals and plastics melting from the fires and going into the water system, heating them probably just flares them up or makes them more accessible to cell membranes in your body. So you don't want that to be going onto your skin or going into your stomach. So this is something that they can't filter out. This is not something that this is not a advisory that they've removed. It's still in place. There's not safe drinking water. That means that people have to go out and get bottled water, and they're brushing their teeth with bottled water, and they're sponge bathing, or they're going to Seabury Hall to use community showers in an area that's safe, that doesn't have the VOCs in the water system.
And that was my next question. So if they have this water that's not usable, where are they getting the usable water that they can drink, that they can shower with, that they can cook with?
Well, that means for most of these people, they're having to drive 20 or 30 minutes away from their home to some other location to buy, to either buy bottled water or to bring 5-gallon jugs and have them filled up at some safe water location.
And so how instrumental are you in that? I think you said you had something there I'm staring at.
Well, yeah. What I've done to be proactive about some kind of solution is to bring in a couple of these Condor water filters, especially after I heard that when they were distributing potable water in the county of Maui, water tank trucks that were going up to the Kula area and to the Lahaina area, I had some reports that people drank that water and they got sick. So sometimes what happens in these big tank trucks is the water that's been sitting in there gets bacteria or sometimes microorganisms. So this type of commercial filter that's over my shoulder here will filter those types of materials out of the water to make it safe to drink. And they've been used successfully in South America and other locations where there's been water quality issues. But unfortunately, they're not able to filter out the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds that are creating the unsafe water and drinking conditions.
Wow, I'm so happy that you're here, because stateside, that's not even something that I was thinking about, was the quality of water.
Yeah.
You know, we see the fires, but we don't think about the quality of the water and it being potentially poisonous. Another double devastation. So we're really happy, and this is what Thriving Women Network is all about. It's about providing these empowering, encouraging, and enlightening messages to people around the world. And with that being said, Ed, is there anything that you want to share with us in addition to the water issue, or adding to that would help the people in Hawaii thrive?
Mostly what people need right now are distribution of clean water and food. And the next organization that you're going to feature is very instrumental in that. So please donate to groups like that. And if you're interested in any updates that I might be putting forward, you're welcome to tune into my website, enlightenfilms.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so, Ed, you mentioned donating to various organizations there locally. Is there anything else that you can think of that we could do to help the island of Hawaii?
Just keep us in your prayers and start reconsidering the idea of vacationing in Maui. When this initially happened, the governor and other officials warned people to stay away, and now that's impacting the economy of the island greatly. So they're encouraging people to come visit. And don't forget that Maui is a beautiful place to come and de-stress from the mainland, whatever is going on there, and the local economy needs your support.
Well, thank you. And you heard it from Ed Ellsworth. Ed, how can we support your vision and your mission of what you're doing with the water? How can we support you? You mentioned we can tune into your video. How can we find you and support you?
Yeah, basically, I will be posting more information on my website, enlightenedfilms.com. And if you're able to give to any of the groups that I list there, or if you're able to donate anything to bring more of these Condor water filters over, that'll be much appreciated. I'd like to get them distributed in the community. Right now, I'm just targeting the water quality in Kula after some testing at the University of Hawaii at Maui campus. We'll know how effective they are. I'd also like to get as many as I can over to the Lahaina area.
Ed, are those available for the United States?
Yes, they are. They're produced in Berkeley, California, actually.
Okay, I'd be interested in looking into that a little bit
Yeah,
more.
the company is called Aguamunda, but I'll be putting references to that on the page that you see on my website.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you. During
Thank
our
you.
YouTube break, we will hear an empowering interview with Steve Calkins, founder of Hungry Heroes Hawaii. That's HHH. He has provided thousands of fresh cooked vegetarian meals to Maui homeless since the pandemic. CJ actually interviewed him on a few days ago, and we'll find out more about that after the island's devastating wildfires. His organization managed to find creative ways to break through the government roadblocks that prevented a lot of local support reaching those in need. This will be very encouraging. Empowering Maui is sponsored by Thriving Women Network, a franchise media network that supports organizations like Hungry Homeless Heroes of Hawaii. That's HHH. Take a moment and visit their website at hhhmaui.org and support the movement of change. We'll be back.
Okay, well, I'm very happy to have with me Steve Calkins, who is the founder of Hungry Heroes Hawaii. So, Steve, tell me how Hungry Heroes Hawaii came into existence.
It was actually my buddy's idea. I think it was the second day of COVID lockdowns. We realized that there was a need to help the people that didn't have shelters when we were in shelter in place, and they were kind of the ones that fell through the crack. So we just ended up cooking 15 meals, thinking nothing of it. And my friend put it on a Maui bulletin board here. And the next day we had a bunch of donations coming in, a bunch more people wanting to help. And then by the end of the first week, it was 100 meals. And second week, it was a couple hundred meals in a commercial kitchen. And it just kept on expanding from there. And then up until now, we've done just over 200,000 meals.
Wow. So how did you react when the wildfires happened in Lahaina? What did you do? What did your organization do in reaction to that?
Yeah, at first we just figured we'd just expand our operation at the kitchen that we currently cook out of regularly. And that was a huge response. And then there was restriction going to the other side of the island. So a lot of meals were being turned around at the checkpoints. And
really? You made meals and then they weren't allowed to be given to the people that needed them?
The first day, but HHH started on the west side where the fires started and where the fires were. And so a lot of our connections and a lot of our contact points are over there. So we already have that web already kind of in place. So by the end of the first day, I made some calls and we went through the proper channels and got clearance to get our supplies and stuff over there. But I'm realizing that other organizations are getting thousands of meals turned around at the checkpoint. So
these meals are being made and they aren't actually going to the people that need them. They're just being thrown away.
unfortunately, yes, I've seen and heard a lot of that. So that's when the idea came, is like, let's start activating restaurants on the west side and just getting them produce and things to cook with. And then we started opening up restaurants that already were donating or have donated to us in the past. So we have that personal relationship with them, and we came up with agreements that we would provide everything that they would normally cook with and that they would normally order in their weekly order sheets. They were just going to continue operations, but we just took the money out of the equation. So we provide the food for them. They provide the labor of love by cooking it and giving it to the community for free.
So people got free meals from various restaurants and all kinds of different things like Mexican food and pizza and all of that.
Yep.
Terrific.
That's still happening. I mean, you can still go to the west side and there's 4 restaurants that are giving away free meals. And then we activated a kitchen. We teamed up with a farm up there that has a commercial kitchen, and now they're cooking about 1,000 meals a day for us. And then we have distribution routes to go into the neighborhoods and into the areas that we were servicing before the fires, and getting to as many people that are falling through the cracks or that are without power or water still.
There are a lot of people up there then who are still without those utilities working then.
Yeah, especially closer to the impact zone. The neighborhoods surrounding Lahaina that didn't get impacted, that didn't burn, they're still without power, they're still without clean water. So yeah, to get to them every day is utmost importance.
So what's the difference between what Hungry Heroes Hawaii, HHH, is doing versus, say, FEMA and the Red Cross?
Oh man, putting long-term sustainable roots in, thinking 5 years ahead. And I think the community knows that over there. They know that they will, I mean, all the power to them, and there's no judgment around these organizations, but they're going to be gone. They're going to go on to the next disaster, and Hawaii will be a fleeting moment for them. So the community over there really wants to establish long-term connections, knowing that this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint, and we want to be here for years.
Right, a marathon and not a sprint. So you're expanding beyond just producing meals though, right?
Yeah, so we do a lot of supply runs. I mean, we have a few Army trucks that we've been kind of blessed to acquire years ago, and now they're finally being able to be utilized. And so we're bringing hundreds of gallons of diesel and propane and cooking gas and water. And so every day we run something different up there with the supplies, like building supplies, infrastructure supplies. There's already been a school being built up in the Pili, so trying to support with that as much as we can. And yeah.
Right, because the school was destroyed. Kamehameha 3 primary school, right, was destroyed in the fire, and others were damaged.
Yeah, from what I understand, there was like 4 or 5 that are no longer going to be used. So yeah, to get the infrastructure put in place so we can build just even pop-up schools for the time being, just to have a temporary solution, is really important.
So how can people help if they want to help your organization? What can they do?
Yeah, simply go to hhhmaui.org, and there's a volunteer sign-up sheet. There's many ways to plug in if you're here, and if not, there is a donate page where you can either donate to us directly or send us a check. Everything is accessible through the website.
Is that tax deductible? Are you a nonprofit?
Yes, we are affiliated with a nonprofit.
Great. So have you been getting much sleep lately? Because you've been working so hard producing meals for all the people that have been displaced by the fire, all the fire victims.
I'd be lying if I said I've slept, but yeah, that time will come. The importance now is to establish that web and establish that infrastructure, so then it can be self-sustaining going forward.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for talking to me, and thank you so much, even more for what you're doing for the people of Hawaii. I think everybody's very, very grateful, and you have a fantastic team of volunteers. And so for people who are not on Maui, the best way to help is to donate. And could you give us that website again?
hhhmaui.org.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Steve Colkins, one of the heroes of Hungry Heroes Hawaii. So, welcome back. This is our special on Empowering Maui, sponsored by Thriving Women Network. And we're excited to have in the studio Steve Phillips. He's the Hawaii representative for PROUT, the Progressive Utilization Theory organization. And he has worked on cooperatives for 22 years on the mainland. And 12 years ago, Steve started Local Harvest on Maui with the purpose of building up the local food supply. And for the past few years, this organization has been working closely with Hungry Heroes Hawaii, providing local produce for hundreds of meals for the homeless. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Oh, thank you, CJ, for
And
having me.
before we begin our conversation on the tragic fires, can you tell us a little bit about your passion, and without getting too political, tell us what PROUT is all about?
Sure. Well, PROUT started in 1959 by Mr. P.R. Sarkar in India. And his idea was that all our basic necessities of human beings, and as well as plants and animals, should be provided on a local level through the cooperative system. So I took that to heart, because I felt I really agreed with that stance. And for the last, almost 50 years, I've been involved in some way for strengthening the local food supply wherever I was. And when I came to Maui, I saw how important that was when you're importing like 85% of your food needs, how vulnerable that makes an island community, which is the most remote landmass on the planet.
So how did you manage to distribute the food on Maui? How did you set up your locally grown food network hub?
Well, initially I started with my wife's minivan, and we started picking fruits at some orchards in West Maui. And I knew from my previous job, I knew the accounts, the stores and restaurants, and the farms that we could get the food from. So I just started loading up the van, driving around, picking up food and packing it from the van to the customer locations and distributing. And it just grew from there. I mean, we started with nothing, and I worked for a couple of years with no pay, but my wife had a job, so we had enough money to get by. And it just grew from there. Now we've got our own warehouse, 3,000 square feet, with plenty of cooler space, and 4 delivery vehicles. And we go all over the island to stores and restaurants twice a week. We also do home delivery. And we have a farmer's market on the west side.
So I understand you're very involved with the food aspect of disaster relief. And so how is your organization making a difference for struggling families, especially in the wake of this fire on Maui?
Yeah, well, the day of the fire, I was driving towards Lahaina to take my daughter to the airport. She was flying back to Arizona, and we just saw a black wall of smoke and with red highlights, and eventually figured out that we're not going to get through this town. So we turned around and went back. And like others said, there was no electricity was cut off. There was no phone service, no internet. So we really didn't know exactly the extent of the damage. The next morning, we got up because it was the day for our farmer's market on Wednesday. And we got to the site, and there was hundreds of cars and trucks there with people that had evacuated and made it out of Lahaina, and also parked up at the Maui Prep School. And we said, well, our truck didn't make it through with the food for the market, but we had food there already in the Napili location. So we just put it all out on tables and offered it for free to those people. And within a couple hours, all that food was gone. And some people made donations, which was great because we could use that money to keep the program going.
So how are the local farms doing since the fires? Because presumably they may have had some crop damage and loss of business. How have they been doing, and have you been able to help them?
Yes. We actually lost about half our business from this disaster because I'd say 50% of our customers were on the west side. And that also affected the farms because if we can't buy the food from the farms for our orders, then where are they going to sell it? And we work with over 100 farms on Maui. So we worked out a plan with the Hawaii Food Hub, HUI, and that we're a member of. There's 14 food hubs in Hawaii, and we're the main one on Maui. And they offered a $50,000 grant for us to do this work. So we could go to the farms and say, we'll buy everything that you have because we need it not only to fill our orders, but to fill orders from 5 different organizations that are buying food to prepare meals for these people in need now, the displaced people from Lahaina, over 10,000 people. So we were able to support the farms in that way and support the nonprofit organizations, many of which had money already so they could purchase that food from us, which helped our business. Organizations like Hungry Heroes Hawaii, the World Central Kitchen, which goes all over the world doing this meal prep in times of disaster. They've been a great partner. Ohana Aid, just somebody on Maui that said, hey, we got to do something. So they picked up like 3 pallets of produce the other day, and they're making a few thousand meals a day. Common Ground Collective, which harvests food from farms that wouldn't be harvested otherwise. So makes it a more efficient food system. Restaurants like Merriman's and Kapalua provided hundreds of meals a day for free, and we supplied produce to them. And another place we're starting with recently called Havens, another restaurant that wants to provide free meals.
So that's so necessary because if you don't do that kind of work, then the farms can't survive because they can't get any money for the produce they grow, right?
That's correct, yeah. I mean, they probably end up donating it because most of the farmers have a big heart, they'll do what they have to do. But we want them to survive and thrive as a farm because, we only grow about 15% of our own food in Hawaii. And that's why we started our company, Local Harvest, was to change that, build that local food supply. So we have to support the farms as much as possible and make sure that they can grow and that we can add new farms and keep building our food supply. So when we're ever cut off as an island chain here, we will have our own food. And not only that, without your own food supply, you don't truly have freedom, because if you ever do something that, say, the federal government doesn't like, all you have to do is cut off the food supply. And what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do.
Well, we're right in the middle of the Pacific, far away. And so if there's any kinds of disasters anywhere, it can always affect food supply in a little island like Maui. So it's very, very important to be as self-sufficient as possible. So what are your thoughts about housing? What about housing all the people who've been displaced? You were saying 10,000 people being made homeless by this. I was hearing more like 12,000 people being displaced by this, the Maui fires. But do you have any thoughts about how they can be housed?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. Some people have moved to the mainland and staying with family and friends. and others have been put up in hotels because they asked all the tourists to leave, and so there's thousands of people now in some of the West Side hotels, especially, and in some cases they're providing meals. But that's only going to last 2 or 3 months, and then what? Because they've said that even to get a permit to rebuild in Lahaina could take 2 years. So it could be 3 or 4 years before they have a home again in Lahaina. And there's a lot of questions about how that's all going to be done. So there's a gap, after 3 months up to 3 years, that where are people going to go? These people have their lives here on the island, and they really don't want to leave. So I've been looking into the idea of tiny homes, and I called up AAA Tiny Homes yesterday, and they said that they've already arranged to have land to put these homes, up to 300 acres. So we can put like maybe 2,500 tiny homes. I said, wow, can you get us that many tiny homes at a short notice? And they said, yes, they could. So we're looking at how to connect some dots, because the homes are around 35,000, but that includes installing it and hooking up electric and water. And the landowner that's offered property is West Maui Land Company. So a lot of things are coming together, but I'm trying to connect the dot with basically Jeff Bezos, who founder of Amazon, has offered $100 million to the recovery effort here on Maui. So my effort right now is to connect that dot with the tiny home dot and see if we can make it all happen. Because it's only a matter of money now. Everything else is arranged. If we can get the funds, and if anybody wants to contribute to that, I think the best way is through the Hawaii Community Foundation or Maui Strong, because I'm also in contact with them.
So that would be pretty amazing. Over 2,000 tiny homes that would be that people might be able to move into way more quickly than any other type of accommodation. But you just need the money to pay for that 35,000 for each one, right?
That's correct. And those are two-bedroom homes, so and that's going to be enough for most people. If not, maybe they can get 2 of them.
So our mission is to encourage our viewers to support the organizations that are making an impact, as yours is. Local Harvest is definitely making an impact on Maui. So how can we support your vision and mission? And what kinds of lessons do you think we've learned from this event? Because, whenever things go wrong, you can always make them right in the future, right?
That's true. Hopefully we can make it better. But to support our organization, we do have a GoFundMe, a Local Harvest, 10,000 meals a day for Lahaina. But you can also support Hungry Heroes Hawaii, because they're getting their food through Local Harvest, and that helps the farms and our business as well. You can support Maui Strong for the tiny home project. And you can just send your love, because Maui has been referred to as the heart chakra of our planet. And even though Lahaina, which is a major part of the culture of Maui and the heart, is burned down, it's opened up the heart chakra of people all over the world. It's just so much support and love flowing in that that's the inspiring part of this. Lahaina, Laha means prophecy, and Aina means land. So it's the land of prophecy. So there's definitely a prophecy behind this, what has happened, and a prophecy for what will happen coming forward.
And what's your view about visitors coming to Maui? Because there are plenty of parts of the island that are open for business, like Kihei, Wailea, Makena, hana, haiku, and a lot of businesses and local people who depend on tourism are really suffering because of people deciding not to come, especially after Governor Josh Green's warnings for people to keep away. What's your view about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe for most parts of the island now for people to come, and it's really necessary in order to keep the economy going. I don't know what, it's a very high percentage of people that depend on tourism here. So there's no reason to stay away at this point. And hopefully the west side, besides Lahaina, will be open in the near future as well. There's plenty of restaurants and resorts there that will need support as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Steve. So you've been hearing from Steve Phillips. He's the Hawaii representative for PROUT, the Progressive Utilization Theory Organization. And he is also the founder of Local Harvest, which is a food hub distributing local food across the island. And he's been working very closely with Hungry Heroes Hawaii that produces hundreds of meals for the homeless. And that's what we're going to be hearing about a little bit more in the break. We're going to be hearing how Hungry Heroes Hawaii has managed to get thousands of meals to exactly where they're needed. The organization has been feeding the homeless since the pandemic and expanded their operations to support all those newly displaced by the fires. Journalist Dr. Kathy J. Forty visited the Kula Kitchen of Hungry Heroes of Hawaii, where 6 days a week, volunteers are producing wholesome meals for the Lahaina and Kula fire victims on Maui, as well as all the homeless on the island. And one of the stars in the kitchen is the amazing Michelle Batts. She is a human version of the Energizer Bunny, and she's taken a leadership role organizing and training volunteers. And that is a very good example of servant leadership. Empowering Maui is sponsored by Thriving Women Network, a franchise media network that supports organizations like Maui Strong Fund. Take a moment and visit their website, hawaiicommunityfoundation.org, and support the change needed.
This program is Hungry Heroes Hawaii, and it's been in operation for 3 years. And we've had several kitchens. We started this kitchen a year and 2 months ago. And we were operating out of this kitchen 3 days a week, approximately 60 to 100 meals. Now we're operating 6 days a week, and we're doing in between 200 and 400 meals. Everyone in this organization is a volunteer. All of you are volunteers. I'm a volunteer. The chefs are volunteers. So every day we have different chefs volunteering. So the flow of everything is different every day. So all our food is vegetarian. It's all donated. We have the, I hope that everyone's seen our website and our GoFundMe and our Instagram and our Facebook.
I'm making curry with sweet potatoes, carrots, corn, lots of coconut milk, peppers, bell peppers, and all sorts of spices.
Well, so this is the Upcountry Kitchen. Our organization is opening kitchens all over the island so that we can meet the needs of the community in the areas that we live. So this is in the Lower Kula, Pukalani area. And we have just abundance of beautiful volunteers coming to help us, and we're so grateful for all of that and all the people that are donating and so forth.
Well, you guys are doing a good job. Let's see, what does this one say here? Hang in there, right. Right. There are inspirational words here, decorating all the boxes, and a little message of hope and love to all those who are eating this food.
I mean, this kitchen is all vegetarian, and we don't use toxic products, and all the meals are handmade. They're made with volunteer chefs. This kitchen is different because there's no one on salary. Everyone is a volunteer, and everything is donated, so it's a collaborative grassroots effort. There's no office or board of directors or anything like that, or government funding or anything. It's just people helping people. So I think that's how it's different. And then the fact that we actually go out and hand deliver these meals that are made with love to people and honor the people that are unsheltered or displaced by saying, we made this beautiful meal for you. It takes us 3 hours to make the meal generally, and it takes us 2 to 3 hours to deliver it. So it's very, it's very personal. The experience is very personal for the person.
Love infused meals from Hungry Heroes Hawaii. So welcome back to Empowering Maui, sponsored by Thriving Women Network. We want to thank our guests, Steve Phillips, Ed Ellsworth, and Paul Deslauriers, for joining us today from Maui to share their passion and to talk about how to empower struggling families in Hawaii. So where do we go from here? How can you assist families in need? Well, local organizations are the best to donate, as they are sure to get the funds directly to those who need it. 2 Maui organizations pledge to use 100% of your donations for community needs, and your gift to them will be tax deductible. And these 2 organizations are the Maui Community Foundation, Maui Strong Fund. And the website for that is hawaiicommunityfoundation.org/Maui-strong. That's hawaiicommunityfoundation.org/Maui-strong. That gets you to the Maui Strong Fund of the Maui Community Foundation. And the second organization is Hungry Heroes Hawaii. And their website, you can see that, is hhhmaui.org/take-action. So hhhmaui.org. And to volunteer your time or give a tax-deductible donation to Hungry Heroes Hawaii, all you have to do is visit that website, hhhmaui.org. Every dollar you donate is guaranteed to help those in need, rather than going to administration or salaries, unlike what happens with many large national charities.
Wow. CJ, I certainly want to thank you for bringing this to light. You are boots on the ground right there in Hawaii. You're seeing this firsthand. And so we appreciate the resources that you've brought to us, the contacts that you brought to us, our guests that came and shared their expertise and how they're helping Maui Strong, and what we can do. Thriving Women Network encourages all of our international guests to help make Maui strong. As you can see, there's a clean water supply issue, food pantries, all types of things that are going on there. So there's room for you to do what you can to support this effort. So we certainly appreciate what you've done for us, CJ. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to put this out. Very important.
It's very important. Now, we know there's devastation going on all over the world, and we at Thriving Women Network want to cover those things. So please, if there's something that you're aware of out there, please drop us a line at thrivingwomennetwork.com. That's thrivingwomennetwork.com. That's our website. If there's something that we need to feature, we need to know about, but we want to make sure whatever we do, it encourages, it enlightens, and it empowers our neighbors globally. So please let us know. And as mentioned, Empowering Maui is sponsored by Thriving Women Network, a franchise media network that supports organizations like Maui Strong Fund. Take a moment and visit their website at hawaiicommunityfoundation.org. And I think you saw that a tag about that earlier, and support the change that is needed. But until then, CJ Grace and myself want to bid you farewell. You can catch this on E360 TV and Spotify if you've missed it. But please, let's unite and keep Maui strong. We'll see you next time.